I just broke. I don't know. Next thing I remember, I'm standing over top of her shooting.
Be directed at someone sitting in public seating, not the jury. Almost like she recognized someone she didn't expect to be in court.
Some protect, others deceive. Behind military uniforms and family facades lie the darkest acts imaginable. From Kemia Hassel's haunting betrayal to Julie Schenecker's deadly matricide, these are the stories of broken trust, lives stolen, and justice pursued, leaving the courtroom in shock as the verdicts were revealed. Let's begin.
Help! My husband was shot. I need help.
Okay, stay on the line with me.
New Year's Eve, December 31st, 2018. An Army sergeant lies dead in his father's driveway, shot multiple times. His wife called an emergency, crying for help. But behind her tears, a shocking secret waits to be revealed in court. Army Sergeant Tyrone Hassel III, a dedicated soldier, was home for the holidays with his wife, Kemia, and their young son. Tyrone had enlisted in the Army to build a better life and had quickly risen through the ranks. He met Kemia in 2015 while stationed at Fort Carson, Colorado. They married, had a child, and appeared to be a typical military family. But beneath the surface, a dark secret was brewing. In the quiet residential streets of St. Joseph Township, Michigan, chaos erupted as Tyrone was gunned down in the driveway, and his wife, Kemia Hassel, frantically made a panicked emergency call. Officers arrived to find her emotionally distraught. She told them she had been inside with their son while her husband attended a party. Everything seemed to point to a mournful act of conflict by an unknown assailant, but investigators noticed inconsistencies in Kemia's story. The St. Joseph Township Police and the Army Criminal Investigation Division launched a full-scale investigation. They found a neighbor had seen a man leave in a black car right after the shooting. 11 days later, an anonymous tip changed everything. Kemia was having an affair with another soldier, Jeremy Cuellar. Investigators learned Cuellar had said Sergeant Hassel had to go. Cell phone records and witness testimonies linked Cuellar to the murder. Investigators found guns he had purchased, including one matching the caliber used in the shooting. Cuellar was placed under surveillance and arrested. Kemia initially denied any involvement, but after multiple interviews and a polygraph test, she confessed. She had plotted her husband's murder with Cuellar. Kemia admitted that she and Cuellar orchestrated the plan to kill Tyrone, motivated by their secret affair and financial gain from Army benefits. She had played the grieving wife perfectly, but the truth came out. Kemia Hassel was arrested on January 12th, the day of her husband's funeral. Cuellar faced charges as well. In July 2019, Kemia was guilty of first-degree premeditated murder and conspiracy. By August 29, 2019, she was sentenced to life without parole.
Guilty of first-degree premeditated murder as aider or abettor.
Thank you. And as to count 2?
Guilty of conspiracy to commit first-degree premeditated murder.
However, she showed no emotion for her actions. On the other hand, Cuellar gets 65 years in prison. The Hassel family said they were in shock. The betrayal cut deep, leaving a family grieving not just a son, but a future stolen by lies and deceit. A soldier betrayed by his wife. But our next case is even darker, where an Army sergeant stood accused of killing his own family.
I am an innocent man. I can no longer sit back and be railroaded and slandered. I have chosen to give this one interview and one interview only.
A decorated Army sergeant, 2 innocent women, and a child who witnessed a nightmare no one should ever see. The question is, did Sergeant Brent Burke commit these murders, or was he set up? Sergeant Brent Burke served at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, home of the legendary 101st Airborne. He had earned respect as a soldier, but in 2007, his life would take a dark turn. That September, his wife Tracy Burke and her mother, Karen Comer, were found dead in their Kentucky home. 3 young children were left inside. The children were the only witnesses. 9-year-old Matthew Pete called the emergency in shock.
911. somebody broke into our house last night, and I don't know who it was, but they killed everybody here except for my sister, my brother, and me.
His younger siblings, 4-year-old Ian and 2-year-old Reagan, had seen the horror unfold. The authorities had one suspect, Brent Burke, Tracy's husband. But here's the twist. There was no murder weapon, no blood, no DNA linking him to the crime. Nothing except circumstantial evidence. Police investigated. They interviewed the children. Matthew described a camouflage jacket. Ian said, "You want to talk to me about my daddy shooting my mommy." But no jacket was found, no weapon, and Brent claimed he was innocent. Defense attorneys pointed out gaps. The drive from Fort Campbell to Rineyville was long. Could someone kill 2 people, leave no evidence, and return to barracks without being noticed? Burke's case eventually went to trial, but it quickly turned into a legal roller coaster. 4 separate civilian trials ended in mistrials. Key witnesses fell ill, and at one point, a 14-year-old falsely confessed, further muddying the waters. Tracy and Brent were divorcing. The marriage had grown tense. Jealousy and control issues were suspected. But was that enough for killing? The defense said no. The prosecution said yes. Despite multiple trials, the case remained controversial. Some believed Brent was guilty. Others argued the evidence never added up. The courtroom battles were long and complicated, leaving the families desperate for closure. Military prosecutors believed they could finally secure a conviction, but the absence of direct evidence made it an uphill battle. As the case dragged on, the Army's Judge Advocate General, or JAG, stepped in to take over. Each setback made the prosecution's path more difficult, and even key witnesses faltered. One admitted on the stand,
Heard approximately 4 or 5 gunshots, I do not recall.
In the end, Brent Burke's uniform was stripped away. A military court sentenced him to life without parole, demoted, disgraced, and dishonorably discharged. Yet he remained motionless as the sentence was read. This is Sergeant Brent Burke's story, a soldier, a father, and a man caught in a web of tragedy, suspicion, and unresolved questions. Mistrials left the courtroom in chaos and the soldier in disgrace. But in our next case, there was no confusion at all. When a National Guardsman opened fire, the victims were police officers themselves.
I went to the door, and I thought it was Brooklyn coming back. As soon as I opened the door, standing in front of me is an officer. Me and the officer, we make eye contact.
The courtroom was silent as the jury returned. Then came the verdict. Grady Wilkes, guilty of capital murder. 1 Auburn police officer was killed, 2 more were wounded, and the man behind it all wasn't just anyone. He was a trained soldier in the U.S. Army National Guard. On May 19, 2019, Auburn police responded to a call at a mobile home park on Wire Road. The victim, Brooklyn Flaherty, told officers that her boyfriend, 29-year-old Grady Wilkes, had attacked her. She said he grabbed her by the wrist, choked her, and threatened to kill her. Terrified, she ran for help. What officers didn't know was that Wilkes was already arming himself inside the home. After speaking with Flaherty, 4 officers went back to the trailer to confront Wilkes. Officer William Buechner, officers Evan Elliott, Mark Sistrunk, and Ron Askelson. They knocked on the door, bracing for a tense exchange. Instead, what followed was a nightmare. Wilkes opened the door wearing body armor and carrying a rifle. Without warning, he started shooting. Officer Buechner was struck and rushed to East Alabama Medical Center, where he was pronounced dead. Officers Sistrunk and Elliott were critically wounded, but survived. Officer Askelson narrowly escaped. A massive manhunt began, keeping the community on edge for 9 long hours. Finally, Wilkes was arrested. At the time, he was not just a civilian. He was a corporal in the Alabama Army National Guard, a trained infantry fire team leader who had joined in 2010. During the trial, Wilkes testified in his defense. He admitted drinking, spiraling mentally, and arming himself out of muscle memory. He claimed he believed officers had their guns aimed at him when he opened fire. Wilkes' words painted a disturbing picture. He described how putting on his military gear made him feel safe and powerful, almost detached from the chaos of life. A psychiatrist testified, suggesting that he might be suffering from bipolar disorder, stating,
based on the evidence that I had, that he had a bipolar disorder.
But that detachment turned deadly. What began as a household fight escalated into the cold-blooded murder of a police officer. In August 2023, after an 8-day trial and 6 hours of jury deliberation, Gary Wilkes was found guilty of capital murder for killing Officer Buechner and guilty of attempting murder for wounding officers Elliott and Sistrunk.
We, the jury, find defendant Grady Wayne Wilkes guilty of capital murder as charged in count 1 of the indictment.
He was acquitted of the charge involving Officer Askelson. Prosecutors immediately announced they would seek the death penalty, setting the stage for a final chapter in a case that had left a community shaken to its core. 1 officer dead, 2 wounded, a community scarred by a soldier's rage. Our next case hits even closer to home, where a husband turned his wife's birthday celebration into a scene of horror.
You've admitted that to the jury because your thing was, it's not who, it's not what, when, all this other stuff, it's the why.
It was supposed to be a celebration, a birthday party for Ashley Henning, but the night turned deadly. Her husband, Jordan Henning, pulled the trigger, and everything changed. Jordan Michael Henning, 34, shot and killed his wife, Ashley Henning, 37, on June 26, 2023, at their home in Rhineyville. The shocking attack happened during her birthday party. Friends and neighbors were there. Witnesses saw the couple arguing. Moments later, gunshots rang out. The family's nightmare began after a household dispute. Neighbors were leaving with the couple's children. That's when they heard the shots. Jordan walked out of the house. Ashley lay inside with multiple gunshot wounds. Authorities were called immediately. Police confirmed that both Jordan and Ashley were active duty military members stationed at Fort Knox. The Hardin County Sheriff's Office investigated. Body cameras, interviews, and surveillance footage became crucial pieces of evidence. Jordan was arrested and charged with murder. After nearly a year and a half of waiting, the trial finally began. Jury selection alone took 6 hours, narrowing down to 12 jurors and 2 alternates. The courtroom was heavy with tension. Everyone already knew the crime was shocking, but the testimony made it even more disturbing. At one point, a female witness was pressed by the defense on,
"Well, and then, ma'am, you're talking verbal abuse. I asked you physical abuse. There was none. Is that your answer?"
I already said that. Other than the push of the car door and him grabbing her neck that day, I already stated that.
and asked to refer to the transcripts, unwilling to repeat herself under pressure. Another witness said, "When I went into the house to check what was happening,
she was laying on her right side, kind of prone, like she was rolled toward the floor. I felt her neck to see if she had a pulse. I felt none."
The prosecution argued that Jordan was unhappy with his marriage. That's why the shooting stemmed from a household dispute escalating out of control.
Gets another magazine and comes back and stands over her and executes her. And you'll see how he spits on her body as he walks away.
Jordan, once a U.S. Army soldier, now faced the consequences of a life-altering choice. Friends and family called him a disgrace. Jordan Henning was found guilty of first-degree manslaughter. He was sentenced to 20 years in prison. He lowered his head into his hands as the verdict was delivered, the weight of his choices and their consequences finally sinking in. A marriage argument ending in carnage. But what comes next is even harder to believe. A mother from a respected military background killed her children for being mouthy.
Did you know that you wanted to kill your kids? No, I was only going to kill me.
Police entered the former military linguist Schenecker's home in Tampa, Florida, and were met with a chilling scene. Teenagers Calix and Bo lay dead, shot and covered with blankets. The person responsible wasn't a stranger. It was their mother, Julie Schenecker. What followed would become a trial no one could forget. The Schenecker family seemed like a typical military household. Julie lived with her husband, U.S. Army Colonel Parker Schenecker, and their 2 children. While Parker was overseas serving his country, Julie was at home with the kids. Calix was cheerful, Bo was athletic, and from the outside, the family looked happy. But behind closed doors, there were signs of trouble. Police had once been called after Calix reported that her mother had hit her, though no charges were filed. Everything unraveled on January 28th, when Julie's mother called the police after being unable to reach her daughter. Officers arrived at the Schenecker home and were met with a chilling scene. In the garage, they found Bo in the family SUV, shot twice in the head. Upstairs, Calix lay in her bedroom, covered by a blanket, also shot with a .38 revolver. Julie herself was found unconscious on the back porch. When questioned, Julie confessed. She admitted she had killed her children.
My daughter, my 16-year-old, is just mouthy.
A note was also discovered in the house, describing her plan to kill her children and then take her own life. According to investigators, the murders happened step by step. Julie had picked up Bo from soccer practice the day before. While driving home, she shot him in the head. She then went inside and walked straight into Calix's room, where her daughter was doing homework on the computer, and killed her. Both children were then covered in blankets, as if to hide the conflict that had just taken place. The official motive shocked everyone. Julie told detectives that she killed Calix and Bo because she couldn't handle their backtalk. She had even purchased the revolver just 5 days earlier. Her handwritten notes confirmed this was premeditated. Julie was arrested immediately and later indicted for 2 counts of first-degree murder. Her defense team tried to argue insanity, but prosecutors pressed forward. After delays, her trial began in April 2014. On May 15th, the jury found her guilty of killing both her children. She was sentenced to 2 life sentences in prison without the possibility of parole. She got emotional while the verdict was read. She said,
I'm prepared and I accept your sentence. I apologize. I apologize to everybody in this courtroom who I have broken their lives.
The tragedy tore the Schenecker family apart. Parker, devastated by the loss of his children, divorced Julie while stationed overseas. When the judge asks him,
do you wish the court to dissolve the marriage between you and Ms. Schenecker and reserve jurisdiction on all remaining issues in the case?
Yes, sir.
He later filed a civil lawsuit against her, making sure none of the family's remaining assets could be used for her defense. The actions of these soldiers turned killers, shattered families, communities, and trust. Their courtroom fates remind us that even those sworn to protect can become the source of unthinkable destruction.